nothing.
No,
That's
tree
right.
board stuff
I
too.
heard, did they film it?
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's 6:02, and we're gonna start our town board work session this evening for April 17. We have 5 items this evening on tonight's agenda. And the first one that we have is kind of a revisit, Parks Master Plan follow-up. Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. As you recall back, I think it was November 28th, we last met on this topic and wanted to bring that back to you. Staff's been working on it, massaging it, meeting with folks around town, and wanted to kind of bring it forward to you tonight and get some more direction and path forward. So with that being said, just really quick overview to remind everyone, since it's been a few months, what we talked about in the master plan that we adopted in April of 16. This was, excuse me, the number one priority coming out of it, which was to develop a system of prioritized growth and/or funding allocation. So basically, bottom line is, what's the future of our park system look like, and how do we get there? So you'll recall we talked about building a complete park system and all of the pieces that go in that, which is walkability, which really is connectivity, capital and maintenance costs, large versus small, the diversity of the amenities throughout the park system and where they're located, and then open space and green space buffers. And we talked at that time, staff presented you basically 3 models. The 1/3 level service model, which is kind of what we've been building to currently, meaning that every resident is within 1/3 of a mile to a park or a 10-minute walk. The 2/3 mile change in level of service, which is a 20-minute walk to a park. And then we got into the conversation and I reminded you that back in 96, NRPA did away with standards. So we shouldn't compare ourselves to anybody other than what Windsor wants. So only build the system that Windsor wants. Don't try to build a system that is Loveland or Fort Collins or New York City, I think I said back then. And we talked about a hybrid model at the time, which was basically putting parks where we felt they were needed and beginning to move away from or moving away from neighborhood parks. So building only larger parks. If you recall, some of the conversation was build a larger one to the north, one to the south, down along Crossroads, build out Diamond Valley, those kind of things. And it would limit the amount of capital. It would lessen the amount of capital cost because we weren't going to build so many parks, so many small ones. We would just build larger ones. But we felt like that would still serve the residents today and into the future. So I also shared with you our current park standards. And Mayor, the reason that you see 11 and 5 up there, one of the questions that came out of that meeting, you had asked how many of each type do we have. So currently, as we sit today, we have 11 neighborhood parks and 5 community parks. And then on the left and on the right, you can see the components and size and basically what makes up that type of park under our current system as we sit today. Those do not include schools, metro districts, private parks, or other facilities such as a golf course. So we don't look at those as public amenities. So one thing I did want to share with you, just I was curious as to whether people had any concern, and especially the board, did you have any concern around not building more neighborhood parks? I heard a little bit of it in the meeting, but not a lot. And I wanted to share with you some kind of where we stack up nationally. These numbers just came out from NRPA. So on the national average, nationally there's one park for every 2,266 residents. Windsor has one for every 1,562. So we actually have more parks than the national average for the amount of residents we have today. This does not include open space and trails. Nationally, there's 9.6 acres of parkland per 1,000. You'll recall I mentioned to you that we currently, this is back in November, we were at 8 per 1,000. So slightly under the national average, but ahead of the goal that was set and approved by the board back in 2007, which was 7.5. So I think we're where we want to be for Windsor, which is all that really matters. So when you look at it, what would we be at 40,000 people? We should basically have about 3,000 acres of parkland based upon our 7.5 acre goal.
300 acres.
Yes. Is that, what did I say?
You said 3,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can go to 3,000.
Call it a national park.
I need to change my presentation, but we can go to 3,000. I'm sorry. Good catch. 300. Of the acres we have now, the 127 are developed. 142 are not, but they're owned. You remember that we have some additional parks that we're kind of on the hook for, like Takankala and Wayne Miller and Jacoby Farm and Village East and Windshire. Those add up to 51. And then the new model, the hybrid that we talked about, was adding an additional 40. So building that all out over the next 20 years, we're at 360, which would mean we're going to be slightly above our 7.5, but slightly under the national average as we sit today. The reason I share all this with you is I really believe that the system we have currently and the additions that we are proposing in this new park system model means that, and what you can see here is we have built and would continue to build a system that will serve our residents after the 40,000 mark. And they're really, to me, it justifies that we don't have to build 16 other parks in every little neighborhood and subdivision that pops up. So what we talked about back then and concur with again tonight and really begin to talk about that as we get into it is the new park model, which was identifying parks based on the criteria and use type. Criteria could be things like size, what kind of use would it be, like a sports park or some other type of facility, whether it needs to be a little smaller or it needs to be bigger, and you'll see those in a map in a second. Identifying the big barriers, like railroads and main highways, and how do you get a neighborhood maybe doesn't have a park across the street to a larger park. And I'll show you an example in a few minutes. As development occurs in those areas, collecting adequate fees, and we will get into fees in a few minutes, from the developers and dedicating land and green space for that connectivity. Identify and open space, and obtain open space and community buffers. So the
Aaron, can you go back one slide and just clarify
This
what
one?
the 360 was? No, in the previous one again, what was
Sure.
the 360?
So right now we have 127 acres that are
Oh, so it'd
developed.
be 360 acres, not
Total,
parks? Okay.
yes, yeah, not parks.
That's just what I, okay.
Versus the 3,000 that you had said.
Okay.
So the new system model, and you'll recall, if you recall back in November, there were 5 dots. So there was one here, there was one here, there was an additional one right over here by the, just north of the Kodak property. What this new model is showing is that we believe there should be about a 25-acre park in this area, 5-acre park over here, a 10 to 15-acre park in this area, and I've eliminated this smaller park. I basically combined these two and eliminated this one. Now, to the connectivity piece, one of the issues we potentially have in the future and why connectivity will be very important is this area over here, which is basically east of 257, south of Eastman Park Drive and north of the Kodak property. If that's developed into homes, let's say there's 1,000 homes over there, and we don't identify a park over there, and we chose not to put one in, how do we get those residents, because they're very close actually to Eastman Park or to Diamond Valley, but we have some barriers. How do you cross 257? How do you cross 392, or Eastman Park Drive? That's the connectivity piece that we'll have to solve in the future, and that's probably one of the key areas, this spot and up here, because you have Harmony Road.
So can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
When we talk about that park that you said over there on the southeast side, north of Kodak, now, the only residential that's close to that is like Water Valley South or something, right?
Yes, on the other side.
But then we still have the connectivity issue of getting across 257, right? So
Correct.
why would we, maybe this is why you took it off of there, so I'm just going off of what you
I
had
took
said.
it off because I don't see the need right now. What I'm saying is, if that was to develop into a major subdivision, maybe in hindsight, we might say, well, we might have needed a park there, but we probably don't. But we should worry about connectivity.
And
So-
I agree, I think with everything you're saying, that's what I'm getting at, is I don't see the residential over there. to
I don't either, and neither does planning, but I just was throwing out there as a scenario that, let's say that someone came in and that's what happened.
Yeah.
That would become an issue in the future, and we should make sure that we can connect that subdivision to another place.
A few years ago, there was a big issue about a residential area over in that area.
Yeah, let's clarify, there will be residential over there.
Okay.
What you're saying is there may not be a park. that's-
Correct, we may not be saying
Yeah.
there's, there's
Yeah,
no
there will be, they're bringing, they're master planning some level of residential in that area.
Where roughly would that be over there? I mean, that's not the right map for it, but I'm just, okay.
They're gonna do some industrial in here, and then in a buffer with some multifamily commercial there.
So I have a question then. If our Stanford Windsor was everybody within 20 minutes walking, if that was the direction we went,
Mhm.
what would the future look like for that area?
There'd be one park here,
One park.
yeah.
So we would require the developer to provide land.
We can get into that in a
Okay.
few minutes on that type of a question.
Okay.
So, kind of where we are today, I've met with pre-cab, staff and I've met with pre-cab twice now, met with the board, and obviously end up here. Concerns, I wanted to address the concerns that came out of the last meeting. The first one being connectivity. That will be an item that we will work with planning on. We have a meeting on Thursday. They're working on code updates and working on things like complete streets. I think that you've heard them mention that. That will be very big. Identifying barriers like what we were just talking about with Eastman Park and 257. The Trails Master Plan, revisiting that to make sure that connectivity from areas that may not have a park in the future to get them to the park that serves their neighborhood. Existing park burden, some folks, I think it was mentioned once in here and once at pre-cab, worried about the existing park system because we have less parks, more people using their parks. I can tell you that I don't think that that will happen in the neighborhood parks. Most neighborhood parks don't see a lot of people traveling to them, so you don't see someone driving. There's probably a little bit of it, but not a lot. So I don't really see a big issue with neighborhood parks. Now, we do see it, and we're seeing it already, in community parks. A great example is our soccer program from one year to the next, just from the fall to the spring, increased by 220 kids, 25 teams, I think. That demand on the park system that we're seeing with, not even talking about the growth that's coming, the growth that just showed up last year, is stressing the community parks, meaning we don't have enough of those built out to handle the capacity issues that we're beginning to see. And just the wear and tear of the amount of people. I think those larger parks are gonna see more people. You'll drive to a Boardwalk Park or a Diamond Valley. You're probably not gonna drive, you'll drive to a Main Park, but you're probably not gonna drive to a Windsor West or a Bruner Farm. You might have a couple here and there, but not masses of people. Yes?
Have you considered limiting the number of players and teams for soccer?
No, one thing, no in soccer because almost 100% of them are Windsor residents. I do think in this next budget, we should begin to talk about non-resident and resident fees for some programs. Give you an example, basketball is about 60% non-resident. They pay the same amount right now.
Yeah.
If we built 3 gyms tomorrow and opened them, they'd all be full.
I know.
So we should, and this is part of my staff and I are already beginning this discussion and working to bring to you, and should we consider across the board or in specific ones where we're having those, more non-residents, then there's not a balance in some sports. So, and those two jump out. Basketball's like 60%, soccer's like 100 for residents. So it's interesting to then ask the question of why? Why are we getting all Windsor people playing soccer, but not all Windsor playing basketball? But the numbers continue to climb in
So
every sport.
There's never been a discussion of limiting the amount of.
Limiting the number of teams and players, no, because then we would begin, I would not advocate for that. I think we begin to turn away people and participants. I think you can do that in some way with fees
Well, okay.
for resident and
Alright.
non-resident.
Is there any way that we could add soccer fields at any other existing park?
Yes, I think you'll see that in the future.
Even like the outfield of a baseball field at Diamond Valley or something, you could turn into a soccer field or something.
You can, we do that already with football. The problem that we will end up having, if we were to do that all the time, those fields never get a break.
Right.
You end up with
Dirt patches.
you end up with poor grass growth, you end up with compaction issues, your ground is harder than it should be. So at some point, you've gotta give your fields a break. So in a perfect world, you'd love to be able to say, okay, we're only playing baseball on this field and that's it. That doesn't happen now. We're using it for other activities.
Are there currently fees for playing soccer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you just wait.
Do
Fees.
You're on your way,
Fair
it's
enough.
coming, it's
Fair
coming.
enough.
It's your turn to bring the fees.
What percentage do those fees cover for the maintenance, maintaining all that?
In our youth sports, please don't quote me off the top of my head, I believe we're in the 80. We're in the 80, I think cost recovery for youth sports is like 85% cost recovery.
Wow.
Conversation could be though, should it be 100% for non-residents? I think that-
Does your plan call for, or is there any thought to doing any kind of turf fields then?
We can, I can tell you that we're working,
Is that
so
not?
right now, you included in this year's budget, another phase to Diamond Valley, and I can tell you that what we're working on is soccer. That will come in the CIP next year for hopefully to be approved to build that portion in 18. If we were to, we could build all these soccer fields that we're looking at, for about $2 million, 2 to 3. If we were to just build one field in turf, it's probably double that. So
But you can play on
But
it
we can
24/7.
play
You don't have
24/7.
to give the field a
It's
break,
some-
less
correct.
maintenance.
there's less maintenance, there is still maintenance, but then the other piece is you have turf fields will last 10 years, and you got to turn around and buy another $4 million field.
Okay.
There's pros and cons. I would love to say, let's do turf. We haven't analyzed it a lot. That's the cost, the initial cost scares me. And then the 10 years later, you're back again.
Yeah.
Where grass,
Yeah. Okay.
even if we had to resod the field every year, it's gonna take a long time to get to that. So,
I think grass is more forgiving too than turf.
it is,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
But you see like high schools go to it because they can play every sport on it year round, and unless it's lightning, you can play.
Are there any other sports that we have that are bursting like soccer?
Basketball and baseball is growing, and surprisingly, this one shocks me, baseball at the 13 and up age group is growing by like 5 teams this year, which is, that's usually, what you lose most kids at age 12. I think 90% of the kids quit youth sports at age
It's
12.
because the Rockies are playing so well right now.
Is that what it is?
It's because the Cubs won the World Series.
That too.
That might be the.
Yeah, I thought it was because I was from Pittsburgh, the Pirates.
Sorry about that, I don't, you know.
Well, Eric, I'd like to hear you finish the list, because I have 2 more concerns I'd like to add
Sure.
on to it.
Absolutely. Impact on home value. I think this was mentioned by staff, and Christian, I think you had mentioned it as well. NRPA says, in a study that they have, don't give a number, but they do say that homes that are located adjacent to a park, home values are typically higher, and then every block out, it begins to decrease. That's a national study. I think that, and this is me, I think that given our location in northern Colorado, given our park system, given our connectivity, given that we have, I'll give you an example, we're gonna get into the rain dance development in the metro parks. Even though we haven't built a park there, they're going to have their own park system. So those neighborhoods will all have those home values that will, if you put any faith in that comment from NRPA, they'll have that. I think we're gonna ultimately have a park system where we won't see residents' home values decline because they're a 5-minute drive from a park as opposed to it's in their backyard. That's me looking at what does northern Colorado, what does Windsor look like. That may not be the case in a Missouri or somewhere else where, unless you're right up against it, you know, you don't get the value. So then future maintenance costs. Don't have any hard numbers on this. I can tell you that Cartograph, which you've seen a presentation on, is fully implemented. They're using it in parks. They're using it on the rec side for field maintenance. When we met last time, we know that a larger park is cheaper to maintain over the long term than a smaller park. So that's part of the impetus to go forward. But we will know in a year what it costs to maintain our current park system. The one thing that we also know is sports fields take more. So, you know, maintaining your neighborhood park at this level is a little different than maintaining soccer fields that, you know, the grass has to be cut at 2 inches, right, Wade?
Yep.
Not 3 or 4 or 5. And you have to, you know, you're dragging the infields more, those kind of things. So sports parks take a little more maintenance costs. But at the end of the year, we will know much better where we stand on what does it cost for future maintenance. And we are also working now to have, hopefully have in place in a few months, a system where we have everything in the Cartograph, every item, so that we can begin to depreciate out what the cost of parks are and when we'll need to begin replacing them. So like, for example, you know, take a main park. We just put in the pickleball courts. What's the lifespan of those pickleball courts? Let's say that it's 10 years. So we can begin to project out what our capital budgets might be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, so that we know what it's going to be. Because all these parks that we currently have right now are going to be worn out at some point, and it'll be time to start replacing them. So you said you had a couple other.
Yeah, just some thoughts. So I appreciate all the work you put into this, and I'm kind of on the fence about it, given I've lived here for quite a while and I've seen a lot of these parks get built. The two things that I'm still wondering about, in these smaller community parks, you tend to have that be, you know, designed for that particular neighborhood. And when I go into the park, just like for instance near my house, it's a small city park, I run into my neighbors in that park and they run into me and we all kind of know each other on some level. When I drive by a big park in Fort Collins, it's kind of like pulling into a parking lot and you're not gonna know anybody, you're not gonna, you know, you may occasionally run into somebody, you may not, but the idea behind a small neighborhood park is that you've got neighbors in there. And to me, that's worthwhile. The other thing that kind of bothers me, and I think you get an advantage from in the smaller parks, is just that accountability piece for all the people that are around there. They tend to watch the park, they know who's in there, they know when there's a strange car there, they know when there's people hanging out there doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. When you drive by a big park, let's say any other big city, it's pretty easy to just say, well, that's not my problem, and I'm just gonna go home to my house. Whereas somebody else, if you're in my neighborhood, parked at my park, and you're two people sitting in a car by the side of the road, I'm gonna take notice of that. And to me, that is what makes a community safe, is when you've got your residents watching these areas that are public places.
Right.
And I think we're gonna lose that.
Not to mention curfew, I would put in, because we have the curfews at the parks.
Well, when you are a resident that lives across from a small park, and even when you drive by one, and you see what's going on over there, you take notice, and you have some ownership in that you're in my neighborhood. And that's just my thoughts about preserving the way Windsor has developed to this point.
I think that's a good point, but to address part of that, there are 5 more parks. I think Eric kind of went past, and there will be 5 new neighborhood parks before these bigger ones come out, so that'll help with that concern and some of
So
the.
we're not closing any current parks ever.
Oh, no. So all of our park system that's open now, these green parks, so that's Takankala, that's a future park. This is
Community park.
Winch,
Future community park,
future community park.
next to Public Works.
Yes, thank you.
So,
This is Windshire, which is developers building and then dedicating to us. And we've been contacted by them, so I think I'm hoping, I can tell you I'm hoping mostly because Tara lives in that neighborhood, she asks Wade about it every day. Windshire is coming. Jacoby Farm, we're doing a master plan for that park so that when we're able to acquire it, we'll be, for the lack of a better term, shovel ready.
Let me just clarify, we are gonna acquire it, it's just Wayne.
That's what I'm saying, Wayne, yeah. Wayne Miller Park, which is adjacent to Boardwalk, just to the north, and Village East. And I can tell you that neighborhood built out last year much faster than we were expecting. And we get calls all the time, and staff is intending on bringing that one to be developed and built next year in this next budget, so if you approve that. So I think to Miles' point, and I do very much appreciate what you're saying, the other piece is this big white area over here where I'm kind of taking my mouse, that is the future rain dance, and we'll get into that when, and that has its own park system within it. So, as you'll see me show you in a few minutes, the next 20 years, planning is projecting we're gonna build about 7,000 more homes. About 3,000 of them sit in the rain dance development, okay? And that will have its own park system. To the north is the rest of is that balance, the 4,000 more. So you have this, what I'll call, for lack of a better term, outer ring of parks, some neighborhood, Big Talkenkala, and then a park to the north. All these homes over here on the right-hand side are these estate homes. So I think for the most part, and I don't think there may be a neighborhood that we aren't catching. For the most part, I don't think that we are missing any neighborhoods that won't have the ability to get to a park quickly, to socialize with, which is what you're talking about, to keep an eye on what's going on. The connectivity piece from one neighborhood to the next, or to that park, will be very vital.
Eric, maybe you said it, but the one up at the north, on the north part, is that the one around the Public Works building?
No, that is this one right here, this upper green one, that's where the Public Works site is at.
Oh, over there,
Right.
okay. All right.
Yes, see my mouse right there?
No, I don't, there it is.
It's hard to
Okay.
see.
So it's that one?
Yes.
So there will be one north of that?
There'll be one more to the north.
Okay, I just wondered.
Which I'm sure the town of Seven.
You might have said that, but.
I mean, that's basically gonna serve
It's
Severn's
close.
residents.
Yeah.
Timothy.
We also are gonna be entering into some we're acquiring, and we have some open space. We've got that dedication from Great Western. That we have yet to decide what that's gonna be. We
Yeah,
have Kiger, which we've yet to decide what
yeah.
that's all gonna be.
That's a great.
And I think those are gonna be additions to this community that we've not had before, that I think will take the place of what some people who might venture to a park, but they will want some of these other bigger, better amenities, so to speak.
Right.
Eric,
Yes.
question about the point that Christian was making about the ownership that people feel. I was thinking of an example of Windshire and Jacoby, just as an example. You got two neighborhoods. What if the park is positioned someplace in between those two, and neighbors in both parks help with the design, so you get that ownership?
Correct.
So I'm thinking that maybe the location of where it is can serve two neighborhoods and still maintain some of that ownership. I think that's important what you're talking about.
Yes, I think both of your points are very valid. And when I look at the map and where the homes in the future will be, I think we will be able to meet most of that, because they will have pretty easy access to it'll be a larger park, which I would hope they would still socialize, get to know their neighbor, and enjoy the park.
Ken, I think, Ken, your statement's right, the interesting fortitude that we'll have to exhibit is who's the first developer in, will wanna put the park in the middle of their subdivision.
Right.
And not on the edge, quote
Right.
unquote. So Village East, let me go back to Village East, this is a really interesting one. In your world, this would have been more like here, and shared
Right.
between both subdivisions, but they were first, there was no anticipation
The
of
timing.
east.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then you look at this is only 3 blocks away from most all of this,
yeah.
for the inner park,
Right.
and so they're really,
And-
they are close.
And as you'll see in a little while, the park to the north up here is already in our queue, and the park to the west is already in the queue,
As far as
as far as
planning efforts.
planning efforts right now,
So back to.
from developers.
to Kelly's point there, if we go this direction, are there things we need to do in terms of planning and zoning and those kind of things to encourage our developments to, okay,
And identify locations.
yeah.
But maybe that ties back into this global conversation of making subdivisions work with each other, so that you're not just building,
Right.
So,
you know, I mean, you gotta have connection
Right.
points that are requirements of the
But,
development.
and I don't, I think those are laudable, everything that you're saying is absolutely right. But we can't even, when a subdivision, like the one out the west, who has a road that runs into Doug Moreland's property,
yeah.
and we can't quite yet say that it's gonna happen,
Mhm.
because they don't want it to happen,
We want to-
once they get it built out, it's just hard, I mean, you just know it's hard.
Oh,
And
absolutely, yeah.
there are laudable ideas, and I think you gotta
Right.
just you gotta stay firm on them if you can, but it's hard.
But they have to look at where they're gonna make the most profit on the
Right.
parks, because it's near
Mhm.
the parks, so they make more money, so, but that can be built into the
But if we
design.
set the standard though.
We say the
Yeah.
park is here.
But it does get to it,
And then you build an expensive.
there is this new model that will help you, because remember, we're talking about town parks. So when Eric starts talking about rain nets, the new model might be, you might say an amenity for metro districts, if you're gonna have a metro district, is a park. And that you want some park elements in metro districts maintained, because that's what rain dance is doing, if that's a concern, so that if they want the ability to control their destiny more,
Mhm.
quote unquote, and make it more their subdivision oriented, well, then maybe you say, well, okay, have at it. And we're gonna still do a town park somewhere up here, but if you build your own system, we're not gonna let you put it in the middle, somewhere, we're gonna make you do it on the edge or something, so, anyway.
Is there any thought to the splitting the one north of Harmony into making it smaller? Cause I think that Harmony is gonna be crazy to cross. And there's only one subdivision up there, right? The new
So far.
subdivision, is there more
So-
potential up there?
Mm.
It just
What-
seems like if there was a
what-
smaller one up there and then the bigger one just south of Harmony, you would touch your bubble on the south there.
What we're seeing from the developer,
Okay.
it will call for a 10 plus anyway.
Good enough.
So going off of what Kelly was kind of saying, is there any thought to, and maybe this is somewhere in between everything we're saying, about having the public-private partnership with the developer? You donate the land, we're gonna put what we want on it that meets the amenities of the town, you know, et cetera, or something to that effect, where they can put it within their development where they want it to be. We set the standard for what it's gotta have, or what we want it to have, or, I don't know, something to that effect, where it's kind of a,
Well, if we go to this town, the new town model, there's not gonna be too many of them.
Yeah,
So you just saw
there's only 3.
5, yeah, well, 3,
Three.
or so, it kinda gets back to, if one of them is on the edge of a subdivision, I mean, or on the line, you gotta figure out where to put it. But I don't think, let's get into that, Paul, too. We're gonna talk about fees, fees and loop, and that might answer some of that, and how this all will work in the future.
How do we build out the park system from here going forward? Where's the money come from? So I just wanted to share with you, so as you begin to see, some of these pages have got a lot of numbers. Might get some sticker shock, you'll see how we do the math. Fee in lieu, is $51,000 a year, or an acre, sorry. Community park fees are $1,273. Neighborhood park fees, then we get down into, how we figure out how many acres there should be per person, number of acres per household. And so then that is how we figure out how many acres of parkland. So when a subdivision comes in and says, and you'll see an example in a little bit, there's gonna be 3,000 homes here. We multiply it times those two numbers, and that says, okay, of that 3,000 homes, that means you should have 45 acres of parkland. And then we go from there. So, you've seen this chart before, so I added it all up. We have 5 known parks. So those were the Takankala, the Cody Farm, those are village that we just talked about. The cost based on last year's cost to build Coyote was $9 million. The 3 future parks that we just showed you, the red dots, 40 acres at 8.4. Building out Diamond Valley and Eastman Park. So that means to build out our future park system is $39 million. That does not count, and this is to your point, Christie, the Kodak Watchable Wildlife property that we got there, we just got last year, Kiger. If we ever did anything with either of those two properties, if we ever do anything with the Frank State Wildlife and our trail system, this is just the parks, not the open space and trails piece. So $39 million. So it's met with planning, and you saw that chart back in November, the big graph of where we're going and where we're at. We're gonna add, in the next 20 years, about 19,000 people at 2.73 person per household. That means 6,900 new homes. That's a conservative estimate from our planning department. So basically 7,000. When you do the math, you come out with those fees. So those 7,000 homes mean 104 acres. We're saying in our new park model, we only want 40. That means 56 of those we would take the money from the fee in lieu to help fund the building of the parks. That's that total. Community park fees, 8 million, and neighborhood park fees, 24 million. So, cost to build out the park system is 39 million. Future revenue from development is those two numbers added together. So that's 35 million you just saw on the last page. The 8.1 that we'll have in the bank at the end of this year, the projected number, means we're plus $4.5 million. That is based on a couple of things. That takes into account of last year's cost to build Coyote. What it does not take into account is building a sports park is about $30,000 more per acre. So it will cost a little bit more. I did the math. Basically, it's a wash in today's dollars. That's if we had the money all right now. We went to construction and built it all right now.
And we didn't spend it on anything else.
And we don't spend it on anything else. Correct.
It's dedicated to parks.
It's dedicated to parks. But it's not like we didn't say, well, we wanted to build it at Kodak. We wanted to put trails in there. That is just for the park system that you saw. The 5 we know about, and the 3 that we're saying we should build in the future. So those 8. One of them being Windshire, which the developer's doing. And that doesn't count the trails in those 3 pieces on the bottom.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, some concerns that we have is going forward. Maybe it's not concerns, it's more about what changes we need to make and things we need to be considering. So, our park system fees, the modification needs to be made to our fee structure. So remember, we have 2 fee structures, not the fee in lieu, but the community park and the neighborhood park. We're basically saying that we would eliminate, in this new park model, neighborhood parks. We're not gonna build anymore. So we should get rid of the neighborhood park fee. Staff would like your consent tonight. One of the questions I'll ask you at the end is to be able to go back, meet with Ian, spend some time maybe in the next 30 days and come back to you with a new park development fee structure, 1 fee, not 2, 1. Eliminate the neighborhood park fee, and I can tell you anecdotally, if you were to say, how much is that fee gonna be? Our fees right now is if we have neighborhood park fee and community park fee. At worst, they should be flipped. We shouldn't be paying the developer shouldn't pay $3,000 a home for neighborhood parks and $1,200 for community parks. It should be the other way around. But I'd like some time to take myself and Wade and look and see what others' fees are, try to get 1 fee, come back to you with some language. And the reason I like to do it quickly is developers are coming in constantly. And if we don't implement a system, we're gonna be stuck with the system we have, whether we want to or not. So we'd like to be able to come back to you and say, this is our park development fee, it goes from whatever day you adopt it forward.
And are you addressing maintenance later in your slides, or
We
where
won't-
does maintenance? fit in
Maintenance,
this?
we won't know what it really costs until next year, and maintenance doesn't come out of this fee. That would be something else we would have to look at, is
But
how do
if
we.
you're looking at fee, I mean, if you're gonna be
Mhm.
looking at changing fee structure, is that something you could look at?
Yes, we can look at
Because, I
different
mean,
models.
it's one thing, yeah, we've got money to build, $40
Right,
million
but to
worth of
maintain.
parks, but that's not where our costs end. They go
Correct.
in, they go on and on and on forever, and so
And-
where does that all come from?
And I think that's the benefit, part of the benefit of this, and you're right, you see $40 million worth of parks. If we don't change our model to the new system, that number's probably 50 and 60 million, because we would just continue to build neighborhood parks like what we've been doing, and our costs will be exponentially higher.
And
So-
the maintenance will be higher.
And the maintenance will be higher, so I think by change, but it's part of a big piece of why we should change is the long-term maintenance cost is, with this new model is lowering that. It's still going to be expensive, don't get me wrong,
Right,
but we're lessening what it will be.
right, okay.
And, I imagine it doesn't come close to maintenance costs, but so far, we're not talking about the revenue we receive from all the tournaments here or use of
Yeah.
the parks.
We haven't gotten into that yet. This is just
Right,
development
I know.
costs from
I'm
the
guessing that's
growth.
not significant enough to cover our maintenance costs at all.
I don't think it is, it probably covers a portion, but I've not gotten into study what amount that is and the cost recovery of all those things. So that's one area, but at the end of that, that's a request that I'd like to come back with a new fee structure. Then there's developments that are already in process and Metro District parks. So we'll talk about those really quick. So Rain Dance is one that's in the queue. So is Fossil Creek, so is Harmony Ridge. I've only kept Rain Dance there so that you saw that it's already in the queue. But it's actually in the Metro District conversation. Fossil Creek, that we've identified, that was the western portion out near I-25 and the County Road 5. That's already identified in the future park system and it's in process, and we would develop that one very similar to a neighborhood park because it's in that size. They're already in our queue. They would pay the fees that we have in place today, and that would pay to develop that park. And it fits within our model that you saw for future parks. Harmony Ridge, that was the one all the way to the north. Very similar there. It's already identified in our future park system. The proceeds from that are already in place. They will fall in the same thing as Fossil Creek. They'll fall under the old fees, the fees that we are in today, and we can develop that park system. And so that's, if you remember that map, there were three. One to the north, one to the west. Those two are already in the queue, okay? And so then that gets us to Metro District parks. So Rain Dance, Kelly and Wade and Scott and I met with them on Thursday of last week. And they would like to build their own park system within that subdivision. It would be built by them, maintained by them. They are going to be coming to you to ask for you to waive, remember we're on our current fee system, to waive the neighborhood park fee. And to put land towards credit towards a community park. So on the right-hand side, I want to explain to you what that means. The developer, and I'm using the term 3,000 because 3,000 homes is what our planning department is estimating. It could be 2,900 or 3,500, I'm just using 3,000. If they build 3,000 homes, that means that they should build 45 acres of park. That means they could build one big park, or they could build 45 little parks. Totally up to them.
Everybody gets their own park.
Everything else is.
So if we, and I say we identify, we have identified. Remember the lower circle down along Crossroads, said 25 acre park, 20 acre park? We identify that we would like 20 acres there. So we're going to talk to them about dedicating 20, and then they would pay us the balance of the 25 acres, which is the fee in lieu of 1.2 million. They would owe us for the community park fee, that's 3,000 lots, that's $3.8 million. They will be coming to you to ask you to waive the $11.3 million fee, which is neighborhood parks. Because they're gonna build their own park system, they're gonna have it all maintained by them. My point to show you is, that development alone would generate, under our current system, if it was our parks, if all the parks that they build were ours, $16.4 million to construct them. They're gonna ask you to waive around 11.3 because they're going to construct the park system and run it.
Eric, maybe this is a good time to ask the question. Has there been a change in the laws and rules about parks? For example, Rain Dance and the ones in Water Valley. We tried to say, no, it's just for Water Valley residents. law says you can't do that?
When we get to that, I'll show you.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
so
I
you're
just-
correct. To your point is, if they have their own Metro District parks, we will insist that they are publicly accessible,
Well, and I knew that that
as
was,
with water now.
that was okay.
Yes.
And not to get into it tonight, but I will have a question too about what happens if we waive the fee. Metro District promises to build a park and the Metro District does not build a park. So that's a question I'll talk more about later.
And not to question your math, but I just need to know back, can you go back?
I'm
Where'd you get that
gonna-
51,234?
Say that
Where
again.
does that come from again?
Which one? That is our fee in lieu price per acre. Dean provides that one and the other two every year to us
Okay.
based on CPI.
Okay.
So they're gonna donate the 20 acres, and
I
they're
say
gonna pay
that-
for 25 cash a month.
that is what our hope is. If they may say, we're gonna build 45 acres of parkland, and then there is no fee in lieu. We would not get the 1.2 either, because they built it.
They do.
But we'd still get the 14.
We would get the 38, we'd get the CP fee, 3.8 million.
Not the NP,
No, the neighborhood parks is what they're gonna ask you to waive, the 11.2.
but we don't have to waive it.
You do not have to waive it, but that's what they're gonna ask.
They don't, if we don't waive it, do they just not build parks then?
No, they have to pay our fee and we don't.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but then we also have to cover the maintenance, they're willing to cover maintenance, it sounds
Correct.
like, right?
Correct, it's their park system. Only difference is, and I'll get into that in a second, is it is publicly, it would be their park system, not within our park. But I think it goes to, Christian, your question and concern about neighborhood park and being able to meet your residents, your neighbors and those kind of things. That was why I was saying, in that big white area on the map, that whole section, which is almost half of the future homes we're gonna see, will have its own park system within it.
I guess, why do we need a 25-acre park just to the south of the Rain Dance Metropolitan Park?
If you remember when we talked back in November, we are identifying future acreage that will allow us to serve the residents in the community park area, like
Yeah.
sports fields. And we talked about people that lived on the west side of town when we're at 40,000 people. If you only had soccer at Diamond Valley, everybody would have to drive clean across town. If we had 3 parks in the quadrants of the north, the east, and the south, we could then program in different areas and send people to the closest spots.
Spread your traffic.
Spread our traffic out, those kind of things.
I mean, I like the idea, but I also like the idea of finishing off Diamond Valley too.
I do too.
I mean, how many acres do we have up there? 100?
85.
Okay, well, I mean, that money, I mean,
Mhm.
would go a long way towards, I just don't understand why we're putting one in the south part of town when we've got acres of land.
It would also, it's gonna serve, so if we don't put one down there, that entire, basically from the southern portion of,
Crossroads?
no, from the southern portions of the Poudre River, with the exception of Poudre Park, Poudre Heights Park, would all be Metro District. None of those residents would have a Town of Windsor Park in it, in that whole quadrant. So basically from 392 all the way out to Coyote, from Crossroads down to the river, that whole southern quadrant of the town would be nothing but metro parks, and there would be no, with the exception of your neighborhood that has that one.
We get a lot of traffic, we get a lot of people at our park that are from out, that don't live in our neighborhood. Because of the shelters
I was
there and
wondering if we should
everything.
focus on a 4th ring, for Diamond Valley, and, I mean,
Mhm.
maybe that should be.
That, I think it's a viable option, would need to consider some more.
Where,
The need for
to answer
more
his
fees.
question though, that dot that you had down there, south of Rain Dance or whatever, where exactly are we talking?
Where Lebu Farms is at. So you have South Hill, it's developing it by the, 7th Street comes up and you get to the roundabout, so right there. Then you have a vacant piece of property, that's Lebu Farms, and then you have an oil and gas well. On the west side of that is all Rain Dance, so the portion between the South Hill and the oil and gas pad.
And so.
And over to 13,
No,
No,
just that quadrant between South Hill and the gas pad. From the gas pad to 13th is all rain
And
dance.
they dedicated already 20 acres to the school
25 acres, I think, to the school.
site? School site, so it'd be adjacent to
Right,
that.
it'd be adjacent to the school.
Let me ask this quick question of, do you know this answer? So if we did all that,
Mhm.
and then we came to terms and said, it's not needed, what's our ability to, dispose of park property that are dedicated to us?
That I don't.
Is that a vote, or is that simply
It's by ordinance.
even by ordinance is all?
Right.
So we could dispose of parcels
Yes.
that we may not need also.
Right. If you may refer it to a vote, but the
Yeah.
charter gives you that option to dispose of it by ordinance or refer it to the voters.
So what I hear you saying, and I would agree, and when I look at the focus of what we probably should build in the near future, is the parks that we owe the neighborhoods, the small ones. And Diamond Valley and Eastman Park need built out, and they need built out quickly because of the amount of new people registering for programs every year. I think what I'm hearing Kelly say is that southern portion by Crossroads, we could have the land, and if we found after we built Diamond Valley out that we didn't need it, then the board makes that decision.
how many acres do we have left in Diamond Valley?
85
We have that many left
to build, yes.
to build on.
But Eric, you made an excellent point, I think. Having maybe 6, 8 soccer fields at Rain Dance would alleviate all those people from Highland Meadows
All the way.
going all the way across town. I mean, I don't think we want all these people going across town for,
Well, there's not really a direct way from Highland Meadows or anything to get all the
We
way to
talk a lot
Eastman
about
Park or
traffic, and
Diamond
here we-
Valley.
There has to be a way, and that's things we're gonna.
Unless it's
still talk
Crossroads or
about.
Maine, that's what I'm getting at.
You Liberty Road.
We still need to talk about that.
So,
But that's not really direct
That's
either.
another topic.
I guess my only, just so you recognize that $11 million that they'll come to you when you make that decision, what that will mean, and part of it goes back to the fees structure that I would like for staff to come back to you very shortly on, and then thinking about how we're gonna pay for it in the future. If you waive the $11 million, that's 11 million off of, if you remember that first budget I showed you with what it's gonna cost to build, 40 million, what we're gonna generate, we were +4. If you take out 11, we're now negative to build the future park system that is smaller than what we've, the new concept that we're sharing.
And if it doesn't get waived, what's
It
that
doesn't
mean
get
for
waived.
them, what's it mean for them and their development?
I think then we would have to go back and talk to them about building the parks system with that money.
So, and
Oh, 45 acres.
Or you would make a decision to say, we're gonna just build a large park. We could build one 45-acre park.
So then your 40 million price tag is gonna be higher because it's not
Correct.
all those aren't included.
That's correct.
So it's either way, we're gonna be short money,
Either way, it's
if we
gonna,
give them the 11 million or not. I mean,
Correct.
or if we
You're gonna spend it
pay
either
or not, either
Correct.
way. we're
That's
gonna-
And I can tell you that it'll be a rewrite of the master plan. What they're doing now, what they are
the
about,
dance plan.
because they have no intention to build town standard parks right now. They're building rain dance specific integrated system that they want. They don't want us to tell them, it's gonna be 3 acres, and it's gonna have these things. They wanna be able to build it in a creative way, and I don't want to take that creative way, to maintain that creative way. I wish them good luck on that. And they wanna be able to market it to their users who are gonna live there. So I'll recommend you waive it. Unless you don't like the master plan and you wanna go back and modify it and change it. But it doesn't make any sense for us to build the system they want as town-owned parks right now.
why don't we build the system that we want? They
That's
can
what I'm
build
saying.
this,
That's what I'm saying.
But
It
our
changes-
system-
They're not gonna want
It
that.
changes
though.
the integrity of what they want, and I don't know why you
that's
want to do
fine.
that.
And
Why
I-
do you wanna do that? Why do you want parks to dictate what they want for development?
Yeah.
well, if we want a 20-acre park out there,
No, that's fine, that's what we're talking about.
but we don't have the money to pay for it now.
We have the ability to get the acreage and get some money out of it. Negotiate acreage also. So what their suggestion is probably going to be a much reduced, if anything, cost for 20 acres of land to do something on it. Won't build it, but
So will these parks be on our parks master plan and maps and,
Nope.
No, Water Valley Park in Water Valley South is not currently.
so they're public parks, but no
Mhm.
one knows about them?
Right.
Correct.
Sweet.
I like the idea of waiting.
They're metro parks, the metro district.
Because of the maintenance and so on, I like the idea of
Why don't we do that for
waiving that
everyone?
fee. I really wanna push on the accountability though, because whatever metro district they're in, they're still part of our community, they are
Correct.
Windsor residents.
I understand.
And I don't want a metro district to renege on their promises to
Correct.
our residents.
Well, have we had any problems of Metro District parks being maintained adequately by the Metro District? As we've talked about Metro District problems and stuff?
I've got a few concerns that we're
Yeah.
sharing with right now.
Yeah.
I just,
I hear.
maybe that's a separate conversation or a separate work session item or something to make sure before we approve even more that we
Mhm.
got the ones
Yes.
curtailed that.
Correct, and we are in the process now of reaching out, we became aware of some issues and working on that. So, moving forward, under the assumption that you, approve the waivers that they will be coming to you and requesting. And this is just an example, if, and I think to your point, Ken, if they were, for requiring them, for example, 20 acres, we need to track it and see if they actually built 20 acres. If they didn't, then they pay the difference. So if they say they're gonna build 20 acres in the metro district, and this doesn't just rain dance, it could be any other development. If we say your number of homes equals 20 acres, and they end up building 15, they owe us the balance, the 5 times the 51,000 if it was this year. Standards, they need to meet our minimum number of elements for the park of that size. So, you know, in one of the earlier screens, we said, in a neighborhood park, it has a bench, and it has a playground that meets a certain age, and then on the community park, it had more. There was more elements. They should also meet that. And then it needs to be publicly accessible and signed that way. So if you show up at a Metro District Park as Joe's citizen, and you don't maybe live in that subdivision or part of that HOA, it's very apparent that you are welcome.
Eric, this is what you're proposing, or this is what it currently is?
That is, the publicly accessible is currently what it is.
Okay, talking about the standards for the parks, if they are completely built and owned and run by the Metro District, are you saying that is that the current standards that we have?
Those are the current standards we have, with the exception of, and I skipped over it when I was looking at it, playground and park surfacing needs to meet the national standards.
Okay.
So that would be something new.
Okay.
So in things I'm thinking of, it's like fall height especially. So at a certain height, you need to have certain compaction, which can only be attained by certain types of materials. And that is to prevent life-threatening or death injuries to a person who might fall on their head from specific heights.
And they have to be
ADA accessible, all of that. So, and then the last piece is, and I think this was also mentioned.
Yeah, I wanna make sure one more piece on this one, just so when we get this further. Open space is clearly defined open space, so if it's a drainage swallow or it's in grass, that's not a park.
That's a great,
Uh,
great point.
So it's a park that people can go use it as a park, just like as we define parks.
Correct. As we define it, it's a recreational use site, not, like you said,
Water
a
detention.
water detention area or a strip of grass between 2 lanes of traffic. That's not a park. So then working with, and I mentioned we have a meeting with planning on Thursday on their code update. It's the open space requirements for future development, landscaping and greenways, connectivity, and the complete streets. I think the connectivity and the complete streets are huge, as well as the other 2 elements to ensure that a developer doesn't come in and just say, I'm gonna build streets and homes and there's no greenway. It's just for lack of a better term, a really super plain Jane subdivision that doesn't have, and they have a lot of that already in their code update, but we will be working to ensure that the park element piece is all in there, in our connectivity, those kind of things.
This is probably a question for planning, but the connectivity piece, is there any magic that could ever be done that would allow neighborhoods to share a park, but also give the developers some flexibility in the way they design. I see that as being the challenge.
I'll touch base with
Yeah.
planning on that on Thursday.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and time it again. So that gets us basically to the end of this part of the presentation, path forward. I would like to know, staff would like to know if you would conceptually adopt the new system. So as we begin to talk to developers going forward, we know where our future, that's the map that you saw. Where are the future parks that we're going to build? 2 of them are already earmarked and they're already in the queue. The biggest one now is to begin negotiations with probably the Rain Dance folks and the Lebu Farms for that plot down there. And then to work forward on the connectivity, the trails, the other open space requirements, those kind of things. And then, as I mentioned earlier, come back and very, very soon and talk about a single park development fee, which is just one fee. So developer X comes in and says, I want to build the subdivision of these many homes. We say, this is how many acres you have to have, and that's your fee, or you build the acres, and this is your fee for development that goes to help pay for the park system that is town-owned, town-run, town-maintained, because those folks are going to use our parks. Raindance is a great example, Metro District. They're gonna have their own park system, but I'll promise you, they're gonna go to Diamond Valley, they're gonna go to the one off of Crossroads, they're gonna go to Topping-Collar, they're gonna go to the concerts at Boardwalk Park. So it's not like they're not Windsor residents. They are Windsor residents and they're going to use our system. Our trails, our open space, all of that.
And as we look to build out Diamond Valley, they won't be contributing to the build out of that.
It will be.
How?
Community park fees.
So $1 million, 3 million, whatever it was.
He's using rain dance.
Oh,
I'm saying-
Future ones, yes. Rain dance, that group, if you were to waive the fees, would pay less than a future developer that might come in.
I think you ought to also consider how you're gonna, if this group is interested, afford to do open space.
I would agree.
Again, I think that's, I'm still wondering about maintaining it, but I think even building or developing open space outside and beyond our normal tax structure right now is gonna be pretty tough. And it'll stretch us too pretty hard, so, I would kinda like to throw, just for fun, let's review what an open space, what is a comparable open space in the surrounding area, community wise. Take a look at that, see if that, what that costs, or if there is, I'm sure there's well, I know there's open
Yeah,
space, but.
there is. To your point, you should remember on the list, so we have 150 acres at Kodak Watchable Wildlife. I think at some point, I would think that there's a great chance we might become the easement holders, or potentially even through some discussions of, hey, we own Frank State, and then do we ever do anything at Geiger? Is it, a place so you can go walk and hike and look at birds and that kind of thing? So there is some potential development dollars that are needed for those sites. So I think
It's pretty hard to build that big trail up the hill to connect down the village to
Yeah.
our current tax structure.
It's not happening.
Well, in our current tax structure, you're right, I think that's probably right, but if we had something like that
I
for
think
trails,
the
open
best
space.
way would be
Mhm.
County Road 5,
Yeah.
past Ptarmigan,
Right,
where Muth is building, and then on Jacoby Road.
right.
So right now, you're done with your presentation, you're
Yep.
just looking for direction if we're generally on board with you moving towards this new direction.
Yes.
And you just need to know if there's a consensus.
The parks that you said are currently in the queue, are those all funded already? The ones that were in the green, right, we're talking about?
Yes, we are about $1 million, maybe $1.5 million short right now.
Just not in the neighborhood.
Just, yes, that,
So there's a couple ways when you use, I'm gonna pick a different actor. There's what we owe per our current program. Those are Wayne Miller, Village East,
Tuck and Call.
not
Not yet.
necessarily,
Jacoby.
and Jacoby Farms.
Correct.
Those three,
So,
right?
yes.
And which are?
No, that one's developer based.
Those
Developer-
three,
So-
we owe.
Correct.
Because we, under our current program, we entered an agreement, said we will build those when, at that development happens.
And we have the money to pay for those three.
And that's kinda like, some of us remember we used to have a list, it was like 6 long, and then we went out and built them all, we got rid of them. So that's gonna be, in my world, that's gonna probably be first priority, get those addressed, if it makes some sense. Then there's the, I don't know what we wanna call these, but you call them the queue, but that's what we know is out there that we probably will want to do somewhere down the line, right? And they're planning stages, that we haven't said yes to yet, but they're in the planning stages. And that's south of Muth's property, that's Dallas Horton's land, right?
Yes, that's correct. And they have a phone call to me today, I haven't returned it yet. So
Yeah.
they're-
What other ones are in the queue that,
The
Harmony.
Harmony,
Harmony that
Harmony.
we haven't said yes to yet?
no, we're reviewing their conceptual plans.
Is that it?
Is that conceptual plan or not?
And Windshire?
If I'm not speaking.
I think we've approved the park site
Okay, then we reviewed the park site. I missed it.
in Harmony.
And the Windshire is in there? or no?
Windshire's in there, and that's already approved where it's at, the developer just needs to move, get it
But
built.
we haven't said we're gonna build that, we don't know it yet.
They're building it
Okay.
for us and
All right.
dedicating it back.
That was the one the board
Sorry.
waived their, fees in lieu so that
Mhm.
they would build.
Mhm.
But did we waive the park, community park or fees?
And
Or
we
just,
didn't, waive any of the building permit fees,
just the fee and,
just the fee in lieu.
Mhm.
okay.
And then the queue are those that we just talked about, that are out there. Topping Cali could be one, that's the purpose of that land donation. You still need more land on top of that probably to do a community park, so we took 10 acres out of that 35, Will?
No,
Is that
there's enough.
So there's enough,
Yeah.
so that's ready to go.
Mhm.
We're probably
And the one off of Crossroads.
crossroads.
And then
Does that help you?
the two big ones, well, when I say big ones, Eastman Park and then Diamond Valley is the
Right.
big ticket build out. But that one, you'll hear me talk when we get the budget about the next step for that one, because we're,
Now Miles is gonna talk about what's the difference between Windshire and Raindance, right?
I heard.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so what's the difference between Windshire and Raindance? Is it a metro district in Windshire?
yes, it is a metro district.
Yes.
Did
Well,
they-
they're also not gonna take care of their maintenance,
That's,
Which
that,
Windshire,
it
which-
is our part.
which Rain Dance is
Right.
proposing as part of their
Correct.
package.
They will,
And
dedicate.
they,
Yeah.
and they came to us and said, how big a park do you want to maintain for planning purposes, right?
Why hasn't it been built yet?
Why hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In Windshire?
Yeah.
You know the backstory much better than
How
I do.
many
It's
years?
not
been
triggered under the agreement,
Yeah.
Right. There's a building permit factor that hasn't been met for Windshire.
Is their park supposed to go in the undeveloped part or the part they're developing right now?
It's gonna get there. It's in the
That's
next
where
phase.
it's, that's where the park is at though, it's in
Somewhere in that phase.
north of the,
Yes.
We've already had a public hearing year and a half ago, to get input on what the residents would like in that park. And then they just recently gave us the plans back with some changes, and we're gonna go back to the residents to make sure, since it's a year and a half later.
It's a model very similar to what we did with Ecuador Circle Park, where the district, the developer wanted it sooner, we weren't ready to build it, so the district built it
Mhm.
at their expense to our specs, and then dedicated it to us.
And he got reimbursed
Only for
for something.
only for the second phase, but the final completion, they paid with their Metro District fees,
You
which
were
were
asking,
not reimbursed.
you were asking for, if the numbers, come out comparable to what our needs are, I think simplifying the fee structure could be a positive thing.
Paul? Brandon?
I echo Ken's comment about simplifying so that people actually understand what's actually being done there.
From the developer.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of the numbers. I mean, if the town doesn't end up somehow underwater because of us doing it, I think that's probably all of our concern is that it makes sense for Windsor.
Well, we talked about, just already throwing a wild card conversation. We talked about what that means fee-wise. It will be higher than the it will be higher than the community fee. It'll probably be closer to the neighborhood fee currently,
You're
so.
not just a simple combination of them, I mean.
I don't know, he's gonna do.
You're gonna look at it more closely.
He's gonna do the math.
Okay.
We're gonna look at it and.
No, I support one fee, I think that
Yeah.
would make more sense.
But it's gonna be on the upper end.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
would
be high.
think, yeah.
It's definitely. Like I said earlier, at worst, I think it's flipped, at worst.
Like you said,
Why
I'm,
do you say that?
Because just sheer scale, we're building bigger parks and we're going to be building, sports, probably have some sports element in them,
Mhm.
which are more expensive than neighborhood parks.
But neighborhood parks typically are more expensive maintenance wise, but that's not,
On the maintenance side,
On the
yes, this is
maintenance
just,
but that's not accounted for in this fee structure.
correct, this fee structure only addresses the capital cost of the building.
Okay, 10-4.
Correct.
I like what I've heard, and I like the way you guys are planning ahead, looking at the growth of this town. And I guess somewhere along the way, I wanna hear at Diamond Valley, there are gonna be tennis courts and basketball courts that are, we don't have any in that end of town. I don't live there, but I know the kids do, and they ask all the time. And we don't have to answer that one now, but I want us to keep that in mind.
Mhm.
And soccer, we've already talked about soccer in that area, but I like the idea.
Okay, Christian?
I certainly like the idea of one fee, but I do think that that fee should be every bit of the current neighborhood park fee, if not greater. I don't think that there's any reason to not make that fee higher. We've got certainly enough development interest in Windsor that we can get away with charging higher fees so that we can provide higher quality services. I'm still on the fence kind of about the overall role of community versus neighborhood, but I'm also a realist, and it's, perhaps that's a better model, now that we're essentially half built out, kind of looking forward, because there is a lot of maintenance, certainly.
And I wholeheartedly support moving in this direction. I think for long-term, to be, fiscally responsible and to still appeal at some level to our community, at the level that we're at, I think this is the only way that we can go to appease, it's kind of a compromise of some sorts to still have what Windsor wants and, yet being able to maintain. So I think you have your direction.
You know what I'm saying?
Are we talking about rain dance, or is that just gonna come before us?
I think that'll come before you once we go through the
Go
process.
ahead, no, go on.
Well, I just have a clarification. So he's gonna ask us to waive fees to build a park system, but that's not a park system we would normally build based on our new model.
Correct.
We will still need the 20-acre park on Crossroads,
Mhm.
and we're getting $11 million less.
Mhm.
So we won't have money to build that, or maybe part of Diamond Valley.
We will most likely be $11 million short going forward without knowing what our future fee might be and what difference that might make up. I'm sure that difference is a little number. And so we'll have to come up with some other way to reach that gap, to solve the gap.
But plus, I thought I heard you say that that part would maybe be questionable. At some future time, we might decide that isn't needed anyway.
Potentially, that was, I think, part of Christian's question of,
Right.
why would we build a big park there? I think the need is there in the future, long-term, but it would probably be one of the last builds we would do.
Right.
The focus, I think, would be, would advocate for building out with Diamond Valley before we get there.
Because I think the thing that nobody's really, none of us have really talked about is, what is going to be the change in attitude in 20 years? And what will people really be doing, and what will they be embracing? And parks may not be what we all think or how we utilize
I
them
think,
today.
and now that you said that, I'm kicking myself for not bringing the article. I handed out a pre-cab in the last meeting. Miles has a copy, and I'll be glad to forward to you one. There was an article in the Denver Post a month and a half, 2 months ago. They're looking at, and they have a massive park system. they are seeing exactly what you're saying. Their park system and their users have changed how they want. So they don't look like, for example, a neighborhood park. They're not wanting to go as much to a neighborhood park, just take their kid to the playground. They want other amenities, so different, so the use of the park has changed. It's not that they don't want parks, but the use has changed. So like, we may see that in our neighborhood parks, maybe some of them down the road when it's time to refurbish them or redo them, when they're aged out, we put other things in there. We just don't come back in and put a new bathroom and a new shelter and a new playground. Maybe we put something else. I don't know what that is. I think your point's very valid, and Denver's seeing that now to their park system.
And it's about, and that kind of gets, as much as I wanna put my head in the hole and not do anything kinder, I know you're gonna need to address that. I mean, somebody's
Yeah.
gonna want to do something out there, in my guess. somewhere
What do you mean
somewhere.
something?
Whatever that is, I don't know, we're gonna do a master, we're gonna probably have a conversation. But it gets back to experience.
Yes.
I think more people are wanting to go out into the open space and experience open space.
I'm thinking that's gonna become, yeah, that's exactly why I brought up the
Yeah, I
open
think it's a
space.
very valid-
I'm thinking open space is gonna become a place where more people are gonna
Yeah,
want to
instead of the
actually
groomed
go
turf.
hang out than
Right.
see your kid go down a slide
Correct.
and swim
That's
upside.
been a question I've been asking, how we get more bang for the buck out of our parks. I mean, they're all cookie cutters, we've talked about this, it's a great playground for young kids, but there ought to be more diversity. I mean, he tells me exercise stations aren't used, but, you know, the point is, there ought to be some different things that could be used in different ways, so I think that's a really good discussion.
I think
to
the
have.
one constant with the park is gonna be soccer fields and baseball fields. And by building out Diamond Valley first, I think we're creating a headache if we don't have some fields, soccer fields up there off Crossroads. We talk about traffic all the time,
Right, that's spread.
and at 40,000 people having soccer at one park, completely on the opposite side of town.
And I completely
Seems
agree, I
short-sighted.
completely agree with Miles, and this is something that Christian mentioned earlier. I look at cause having had kids that have played soccer in the younger years, it's almost more of a social thing for the parents.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't take a whole lot of skill to play soccer. So it's more of a way to introduce, it's more of a way to introduce your kids to sports. As the reason why let's go see if you wanna, I'm being honest to tell you that
It's a gateway to recreation.
it's a gateway to recreate, and
It's a beehive mentality at the younger age.
That's right.
They chase the ball and they.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what, I remember, I mean, being a principal all these years, for a long time, you know, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders were the only ones that played, you know, sports. Baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, all of this. First and second graders never heard of it, and they wouldn't even know. And as a principal, I argued, should we be doing it at those early years? Well, anymore, they're doing it whether we like it or not. And so there are a lot more kids getting, I mean, it's my feeling, and I've watched it, getting more involved. Go to Grandview and watch the first and second graders playing basketball every Saturday. And every Saturday and Sunday.
Well, I'm just
I
saying
mean,
that
some
the
we have to
parents
keep in
almost want
mind.
their kids to do it more from the social aspect from the
social
parents. You're having your coffee on a Saturday morning and talking with the other parents while your kids kick the ball, I mean, it's.
Are we ready to move on to our second item?
Please.
Last comment for me is, and don't forget, don't get too stuck that you have to wait for a pot of money to grow. You could pull from capital and expedite some things if it's a priority, and maybe the fund pays it back some, so just don't forget that, I mean, obviously, that's what it's for, but if there's something you wanna do sooner, you have other resources, so, there you go, yeah.
Okay, and then we're gonna move on to item 2, which is Parks and Recreation Sponsorship Proposal Package.
You're still
So this is high school.
Hold on. Now, here's the fun
3
part.
hours later.
Here's the fun part. Oh my goodness, that was bad. So, in your packet, you have a copy of the old, program sponsorship, and then the new one. And this is just the main page, I'm not gonna show anything other than that on the slides, unless you would like for me to pull up the document. So you should have
I mean, the
this.
biggest question is, do you all like it, do you have a concern? If you like it, then we're ready to go.
And
I really appreciate it. I looked at it as if I were gonna be a sponsor, which I can't be, but too much money, but it was very easy to read. I could see the variety of areas where I could be a sponsor. I like the chart that shows me what I get for my money. I thought it was excellent, very easy to read.
It's the old one.
Yeah.
I think philosophically, what we wanna check in is, are you okay with what's for sale? I mean, really, that's really.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
point.
I mean, monetarily, the market will bear what will bear, and we may have complete failure, or we may have great success. But are you okay, like I said previously, selling
Yeah.
everything that's out here, or not?
I only like it if we need it, otherwise I don't think we should do it. I think we should limit that, just because I think,
That's why I want this limitation,
When you say limit, do you have areas that you specifically would like to see us limit? Like, I'll give you an example. If Nike came to us and said, here's $50,000, we're gonna put our logo on the center court of both basketball courts at the rec center, is that something you're saying we don't wanna do that?
well, I think you have to look at it from, who's the sponsor? If we're looking at, XYZ Taco Shop wants, their logo on the middle of the basketball court, they're gonna come up with the money that day. I don't necessarily think that that's sustainable. If you've got somebody like Converse or Nike or something like that, that's saying, yeah, we'd like to get behind one of your football fields, whatever. I mean, maybe that's different, but I don't know, I just think it starts to look kind of trashy if you've got logos and phone numbers on everywhere you turn. And these are city parks.
I kind of partially agree. I hate to think everything's for sale. Are we gonna have something on town hall, like where does it end? The extraction oil town hall?
We're
in
not
Windsor?
working on that.
Okay. No, but I'm saying, just like,
I give you,
or go police department, let's sponsor the police. I like it, but I think it can go too far.
Well, this is it.
yeah,
So this is it.
right, if there's some things in here that you have concerns about,
Okay, my concern would be, who are we getting in bed with? Are these people vetted? I don't wanna
Right.
go where Christian went, but I just wanna, if we go with some shady fly-by-night company, I don't know, who are we partnering with? That would be a
There are
concern.
people that just won't shop at certain sponsors for other reasons. So do you put them on, they're now a sponsor of your town and you've essentially offended a percentage of your population by doing so.
When you maybe didn't need to.
When you didn't.
I mean, it's a natural, like on the outfield of the baseball field, you always see the banners, right? Maybe one per team, I don't know if that's legal. But, I don't know, I just don't wanna see everything.
Have you done that, Eric, in your past, has kind of had a problem, or it's not, I don't wanna use the word discriminate, but how do you vet?
So, I've done it where, like, for example, on the outfield fence sides of sports parks, when there are youth games, you wouldn't put cigarettes or alcohol or something like that. It's, Joe's T-shirt shop and
Or Subway.
But then I've also seen where, when it's adult night, for like adult softball,
Insurance companies.
it's a red light sign, because you're also, so you can have them,
So they come up and down.
they can come up and down, or if it's just an adult complex where that's all that's the tens there. If it's not, if it's mixed, you stick with the youth
There's
side.
still kids that come watch their
Correct.
parents or whatever.
Right, and we have the option if someone, if it's I don't want to name any businesses that we might, but if it's something that we felt like, not sure, it would be something we would come back to you and say, someone's come to us with a sponsorship of $10,000 and this is the business, and let you all make that decision.
Well, if some new dentist comes to town, they sponsor, that's
Right.
great. All of a sudden they're in some malpractice, I'm like, oh, great, they're here on our rec center.
I've not had any issues, I can tell you that I've never had any issues with selling sponsorships, other than most recently, we've had some people taking off of the dog sticker on the waste stations because they didn't think it was a sponsorship.
I didn't think it was.
Thought that the vet was just sticking it on there, and that's not the case.
That's what I thought.
I think that's calmed back down now.
Good idea.
But, that's been the only issue I've ever had with sponsors.
Legal question. Does the town or pre-CAB everyone have the right to say no to a sponsor?
Yes,
I would think so.
Based on what though?
if you
We
own
would
it,
have to have some criteria.
Because if some group comes and says, we want to sponsor that, and they're a group that offends 99% of the population, what's our criteria for saying, no, we don't?
And without this group to sponsor.
if you own it, then you can't be compelled to have your property used for any particular form of speech.
That's a safe.
That's a pretty safe place.
Well, how do we decide? Like, something Brenda may completely embrace, maybe something I don't wanna see as a sponsor.
Let's not go there.
Don't have if you would like a process where
Ah.
you get a heads up before we were to do anything, we can definitely go that.
I mean, it's always, I mean, I think the thing is, it's always been, there's been some level
There's-
where it's
yes.
always been in place anyway. And what, I think what they've done is, they've raised the bar a little bit in
Yes.
terms of
Absolutely.
what,
Yes.
and what it looks like and how it's optimized. And we've not had a problem with this to date, and it's already been, it's been in place. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
Probably better than
I think you
alcohol.
guys have done a good job of of finding things that, first of all, it makes sense for sponsorship, so it's not like everywhere we look, we're gonna
Right.
be inundated with somebody
That's not
having a
the
signage. I think you've done it in
Taco
very
Bell Town Hall.
specific places for very
Extraction
specific
LLC.
elements.
Right.
Town hall.
And I think you've positioned it to where folks, you know, like the senior lounge, so people who are in that marketplace who serve seniors,
And
might wanna be in front of them, but that also might serve that senior population to know that there are those kinds of folks, you know, visiting angels or whoever that are out there. So I think this is a nice job, and I think we should, you know, I mean, and it's also like, it's costly to run any kind of that programming, and it's the one piece that might enable us, it's not gonna, it's not gonna find a placeholder in the budget that we're gonna
Right.
depend on these things, but it probably enables you to do some special or extra, or when you actually need something that is not in the budget to.
Well, that was
maybe
gonna be
able to
my
take-
question is if, like what Christian was saying, if we didn't allow it at all, where are we at on our budget towards?
Well, yeah, in this year's budget, I think we said we would raise, top of my head, $24,000 in sponsorships. It's in the budget this year. We talked about.
Okay, so the 24,000 comes in,
Mhm.
which we can't necessarily depend on, it was in the budget, et cetera, but it hasn't necessarily come in. What do we use that $24,000 on?
Goes to the general.
It goes to general fund.
General fund.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily something we have to do at all.
No, it's not something we have to do.
I am only
think it's a
just
way to
bring-
offset costs. So, like, for example, if we were gonna take our budget for bands from 10,000 to 20, and with the intention of raising the difference through sponsorships, that allows you to offset the cost of that increase in service.
And I would imagine, they're not gonna go out and say, we gotta sell every one, they're gonna go out and try, and open this up and say, here's what we have, and at the end of the day, some of these might not have any sponsors sold.
Absolutely.
Some of them might have one, and some might be, like Farmers Market, you've already sold 2 of those, right? Cause did you,
I think
you know, the DDA wanted the.
we're at 4 for the farmer's market.
Oh, great, so, I mean, so, some will be completely sold out.
I
And
think we-
these are for specific events or times. So back to the point that Miles made, maybe Dennis is getting sued for malpractice or something, their sponsorship expires, right? It's not,
Yes, and
It's for a
I
specific
think
time
there's also
period.
some clause in the contract, if something
Is it-
happens, we can
okay.
pull it.
so we have some way of protecting the town and reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got, so everyone knows, we have 5 confirmed sponsorships, and this is just us kind of quietly going out and reaching out, well, for farmer's market and summer concert series, we have 5. And then there, you know, I've shown you all this once and asked for it back, I think, and I did the same thing with Pre-Cab. Through the grapevine, we have been approached by a business that's interested in the $10,000 sponsorship. So I feel very confident that's gonna happen. But it, you know, I've gotta get them to sign yet, so, and it's a good local
The aquatics.
business.
So what did you just need to know if everybody was more or
I
less?
just started looking at it and go, this is bigger than we originally talked with you, I wanna make sure you get this.
And if there's anything that you have concerns, like, you know, I mentioned the gym floor logo, just as an example. If there's something that I've listed or you see in this that you don't want us to pursue, please let me know.
But I think I'm seeing generally shaking a head that you're good to at least initially go.
Is there anything else, Eric, that we talked about, you might wanna quickly brief them on? Farmers market's going well on time?
I forgot to bring that. Yes, farmer's market, we're on time. We still haven't gotten the drawings, but we're not quite in panic mode yet. So we're getting there. but we're not quite there
Who's
yet.
not in panic mode?
It's April
It's,
seventeenth.
yeah, I know. We panic in June. I know what I forgot to bring, Kelly.
What's that?
An update on where we're at with the, last time I was with you, you approved some additional projects at the CRC, and I forgot to bring the balance of those.
Oh,
I know the carpet's done in the senior room, and we've got pricing on 3 or 4 other things. So they're moving along.
AV's going in.
AV's going in, the new cabinets in the Evergreen room. Probably the one that will drag out the longest is the climbing wall. And the reason behind that is we think if they can fit it in the construction that the school may take it. So it will probably, if that works out, we'll leave it in place until they're ready. So, and then we are at, if you count Silver Sneakers, 5,612 members.
That's pretty good.
And cost recovery is looking really good right now.
Great, thank you.
okay. Moving on then, thank you all. Moving on to item 3, Chief Klemick talking about the school resource officer discussion.
I will keep it much shorter than Eric.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody is short.
Will you keep it under budget?
Yes, that was way under budget.
Oh.
I like this guy.
I don't
See
know.
if we plow your parking lot,
Those get done already.
I've got 4-wheel drive.
The school resource officer, a little history on that topic. We've been having, over the years, a lot of interest and with providing a school resource officer for the school district. Out of concerns from some parties on the side. It's been discussed several times in the past. One of the biggest hangups was cost, and the effort the school district for the longest time really was in no position to enter into a partnership with the town for that.
It's your.
As times have moved forward, the need has grown even greater than it used to be. So we started the PD with a special day shift officer position, and that person was assigned to the schools, but they also did regular patrol duties. And then as we went on, we added the second special day shift officer, one each platoon, so that we would maximize coverage of the schools, but also to balance out call loads on the street, because those officers were still handling calls for service on a regular basis. As we move forward with the schools and some of the other issues that have taken place there, the need really has gone to the point where oftentimes our day shift officers during the school year spends a great deal of time at the schools responding and reacting to calls, not engaging the student population at all in a positive form. So what we're doing is we're entered into a conversation with the school district about the SRO position, coming up with one, and through talks with Mr. Segmiller, they've said that they can probably commit to about 30% of the cost of an officer, which would be the entry-level officer's position. So I've committed to providing an SRO person to the school district with the staffing I currently have. That person, we went through, talked about who it was gonna be. The school district had a say in the process. We talked about how we go about it, put it out to the officers who were interested in that position, and Officer Darcy was the only one to put in for the position. Ironically, he was also the #1 choice for the high school as for his fitting into that position. He's been working with the schools for some time now, while he's with his other tasks and duties he's working on. So what we're doing right now is we're talking to the school district. I got a contract from Poudre School Districts for an SRO contract. I had Kim go through the contract and create a draft form, and then it's been shipped over to the school district for their attorneys to go through, which I don't believe will be too much of an issue, since the the contract was originally written by the same attorneys that Hooter uses. So RA4 uses the same attorneys. Our contract will be much different in the scope. We won't have multiple SROs. We'll have one SRO that will be, at the time, will be servicing all the schools in Windsor, excluding well, of course, we won't be going to Severance for Rangeview or the middle school or the charter school. Those are on they'll be separate duties. Severance, of course, is the county handles that, and we go up there occasionally just to back them up on calls or for service as needed. So where it stands right now, the school district is going through the contract on their draft side. Once that's finalized, we'll sit down with them and spell out the responsibilities of the SRO, what they'll do within the school. There'll be no disciplinary actions taken by the officer, so he's not gonna be a truant officer. He won't be making kids turn in the homework. Their primary function will be hopefully building rapport with the kids, handling calls for service that are there, because we're not gonna stop having those calls, and to teach some classes, probably in the realm of the constitutional law, officer, safety issues, and trying to work through some global issues that we're having as a community and build that relationship with them. So it's not going to solve every issue that we have in the SRO. Isn't going to do away with criminal activity at high school or from kids, but it hopefully is a good opportunity to reach out to them.
When I was reading through the packet, the only thing that caught me is I thought it was gonna be a 50-50 split with the school district. So when I heard the 30% funded by the school district, that was the only question that I had, not that
Yeah.
I'm not far into the numbers. I thought that the number that had originally been floated out to us back when we were talking about an SRO was,
We would have been nice to have 50% split, but again, the school district still is in the situation, I and Ken both know the funding in the state of Colorado is really skewed, so it makes it difficult for them. They can't just produce money or find another way, so it's, the belief on our part was that we get them to commit to some portion of a partnership, it's a much better deal. So we'll recoup at least 30% of the cost, anywhere between $18,000 and $25,000.
Did I hear right, they won't go to any severance?
No.
Based,
No, that's in accounting, so we don't have a contract.
I get that, but should they? Those are a lot of Windsor's kids that go up there.
Well, again, we'd have to.
Another high school?
We'd have to connect it into an AOA agreement with the county, and we'd have to really.
Because our police
No,
don't
I
cover it.
understand, but just-
So,
I don't know.
that too, since the school district's paying 30% of it, I thought they might have asked for coverage.
Yeah.
oh, they would like us to go up there,
Sure.
but
They
again,
can't cover everything.
one of the problems is we'd be
Right.
stepping on Wall County's
Okay.
jurisdiction, and that's their charge.
Are they providing an SRO?
They do have an officer that works with the schools up there, yes.
what about when
Yeah,
the new
never-
high school's built? Is there any talk about that now? Same thing?
Same thing. If it's in Windsor's jurisdiction, we'll take charge. Now, that's always something that can be negotiated down the road at some point, but at this point, until we have a firm understanding and grasp of how it's operating in Windsor city limits right now, I would say we should just stick with what we have here.
Okay, I was just curious, it just seems like they're part of our school district, so
Yes.
I get the difference in the
Mhm.
jurisdiction. My other question is, will they respond to calls at the high school? I mean, obviously they're there if something goes down.
Yeah, their primary duties will be with calls with the schools. But there's also the thing that happens, oftentimes, they may be actively engaged in something else, and another officer will have to be sent in to handle a call, depending on what it is. So if it's an emergency, whoever's available will handle it. If it is a call that can wait until they are free, then they'll wait till they're free and they'll handle it.
This may not be the right way to say it, but is it like a good cop, bad cop kind of thing, where the person that's in there is a mentor, versus someone that's gonna come in and start
No,
arresting and?
no, it's not.
Okay.
The primary focus, we want to find the right officer that can establish a relationship with the student population. And that also includes, you have to enforce the rules. So it's not good cop, bad cop, it's, I'm here to help you, but I'm gonna hold you accountable.
Because my son has one of these officers at his school, and I don't know how many schools he covers, but the kids know him, and he comes in and talks about bullying, or talks about drug use, or just all different things. It's
It'd be the s-
wonderful.
It'll be the same thing, and it will be, the Officer Darcy will be shadowing, Fort Collins, Fossil Creek, I believe, or Fossil Ridge, not Fossil Creek, Fossil Ridge. And as far as, what their tasks are, and we've been modeling ours, off of several other programs that are, already nationally recognized.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's like Fossil Ridge, most school districts, most bigger, some have, multiple officers assigned, so, ours is a real hybrid in the form that it will be, to allude on other tasks of the schools. So, Skyview has a SOAR program, for kids who are high needs, students, so they'll be doing a lot of things with that school specifically.
What does he do during the summer?
He'll be assigned to patrol. So his hours will be basically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. He'll mirror the school district hours. Summertime and holidays will, probably in the holidays, the schedule will stay the same.
Yeah.
Summertime, he'll probably roll into working with a special unit that we're forming, so he'll have those collateral duties there.
He won't have any responsibility for nighttime activities, so football, all that stuff.
That's all something will be worked out with the schools as they go forward. He's not gonna be responsible for everything that takes place at the school, so.
I don't think you could have time with
No.
all the stuff that goes on.
So, but there may be some events where they feel it's beneficial that the NSR is present. So, it's, maybe a dance or a football game or a basketball game, they do a playoff game sometimes. Other jurisdictions, the SRO will travel with the team if they're anticipating some possible issues. So, moving forward, as soon as the school district's back with their contract, their review of the contract, we'll go back, sure everything meshes, then I'll bring it back to you for your final approval as where we're going with this process and to work out the particulars. The school will provide an office for him to work, so.
I know this sounds like a crazy question, but I thought I'd just ask, will he have all the weaponry if he needed it there?
Yes, he'll dress as an officer. There'll be some times he'll dress differently depending on what he's doing, but yeah, he'll be
I know that sounds crazy to say when we're talking about our schools, but if all of a sudden something required more than a pistol or something
No,
like that he would have some.
Yeah, at all times he'll be equipped with lethal, less lethal options, and a radio, and a phone.
Dedicated parking spot?
That is something we're working on, yes. And I've requested to be up front of in the school, so it's very visible for people coming and going, just for that deterrent aspect.
Except they know when it's not there.
Yes, but that's gonna happen. But hopefully during the school year, they're gonna be there most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
Then we're talking about him officing out of the high school.
yeah, most of his work will be done out of high school. He'll still have work to do at the police department. We're working with IT on trying to come up with a way for him to have access to our report system at the school without compromising security issues. So, but if there, of course, if there's a custody issue, something like that, the custodies are always transferred to the department, and we handle those from there. So. Any other questions I can answer for you?
Anything else?
Like the idea.
Good.
Good. Look forward to having that.
And they start of next school year? Is the start in August?
Yeah, August, September, depending. We normally, our special day shift position runs June to June. So we select that person, they rotate out, so those special day shift positions as of June will be back into the patrol schedule, and Officer Darcy will be on the SRO schedule, but his full-time duties won't start until the school year.
Thank you. Did you pass along to him this thing about first responders, or?
No, I asked you if you want me to.
Yes.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thanks. Okay. Item number 4, National Citizens Survey discussion. Ms. Oliver.
So every 2 to 3 years, we send out a citizen survey to our residents, typically in May before summertime hits. The survey questions that we have, I included a draft in your packet of what 2017's can look like. They ask questions about public infrastructure, town services, public safety, parks, amenities, and basically quality of life questions.
And this goes to what, 10,000 over residents?
It goes to
or-
1,500.
Oh, only 1,500?
Yeah, so it's a sample size of our population, so they try to get a really good mix from different districts and age demographics, which is one of the last pages of the survey, so we can get a good feel of the entire population. In previous years, we had pretty good return rate of 40%, and usually the average is about 20%, and we also have a web-based option, so we'll send it out hard copy to residents and then also push it through social media and say, anybody can take the survey if you haven't taken it already. So a lot of this survey itself we can't change because we benchmarked to other years. We last did this in 2013 and then 2011. So we like to see, all right, what are the trends, what are we seeing? And then we do benchmark communities, so other communities our size, to see what are the trends that we're seeing. So we do have an option to make our own custom question on the last page. So we've got 3 questions that we can do, which I included in your packet, and then 1 open-ended question. And so, if you don't mind, I'll just read those to you, and looking for feedback. If you don't like them, that's fine. If you've got a better idea on a question, we can do that too. So the first question could be, and we've asked this in the previous 2 years, is how do residents get their source of information? I think that is an important question to find out. Is newspaper the biggest source? Is social media? Is the town website? And then we can benchmark from the other years to see
We
what's
really
trends.
see, yeah, I wanna keep that, because I wanna see how that's trending.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah, I do
11 was mostly all newspaper.
It
And
was,
we'll be up for you. For you to
13,
like
it was starting to trend a little bit differently, so we'll see this.
but it still was newspaper
Yes,
too.
13.
Yeah, last time it was 48%
So good for you,
newspaper.
James.
Yeah, that was, so we'll see how it's going.
Now we can't get rid of newspapers.
The only thing I just,
Now we got a Wednesday edition.
well,
Not all of us.
my suggestion on that one, Kelly, that might be helpful for James, but it might be helpful for us, is that local newspaper, can they do an option that says print and?
Yep, do that
or
online
electronic, so
versus
they,
print.
yeah, maybe that they can,
Print and or online version.
Because some people don't get the print edition.
right, so it's,
So,
That's a
print
good
would be
idea.
known, or
Right.
if there's a way to break that
That's
level
good,
down,
yes.
that might be helpful.
It's a good suggestion, thanks. And then another question, this was actually in our 2013 just standard questions, but it got dropped off in this most recent edition of the surveys. And it might be interesting to find out how residents rate our speed of growth in the categories of population, retail, and job growth. So if you're interested, we could ask that again, or if there's any other one you wanted to throw on, that one, we could do that.
We talked about that one. I think that's a good question in that, I think that's on the mind of a lot of people in our community. My question to myself and others is, will we be prepared? Yes, we will. But we might get, I mean, I bet $10 the answer's gonna be, we're growing too fast. So what's the implication? What do we do about that? And I can think of 3 or 4 things.
I'm not sure, I mean, you're gonna get some of those, because we have a few
Yeah.
of those, but I
Right.
don't know that overwhelmingly.
But on the other
of-
hand, if we get the one that
maybe.
says we're not growing fast enough.
Or if they are, then maybe we do have to look
Implications,
at
maybe
something.
I mean, I'm not suggesting anything, but that might mean we start talking about bumping up our incentive packages. So I think this question has a lot of impact on what we do as a board. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not advocating for it, I'm just saying, we, in our minds, should be ready to deal with whatever the answer is, because it could go in a lot of different directions that involve implications for what we do.
But the answer is focused on like business growth, and those, I think people are gonna confuse that with residential.
Population growth, retail, and job growth. And I think it's a really good question.
Population growth.
Yeah, it's
So
got
it's just
3
overall
things in there.
so can we
It's
put,
broken out in 3 areas.
that one question can have 3 little sub-questions?
Yeah, it has 3
Yeah.
subcategories,
Okay.
and then you rate, you know,
Okay.
what level you think it is.
So if you ask a question, you gotta be prepared to deal with what the answer is.
Why we're asking.
Right.
Or don't ask it then, right? Right,
Well, I didn't say that, I said that's why we're asking.
right, so.
And then our third question that we could ask, which is new, but based on kind of what's happening regionally in the conversation about broadband and internet service, we could ask residents, how satisfied are you with your current broadband or internet service, and see what their feelings are about that. So that's a new one added, but if you're interested, we can ask it.
I think it's interesting, cause I think, wasn't it just a week ago that we were looking at Dean's report? and our franchise fee had gone down.
Well, I'm suggesting it might be one of the.
And I know you had mentioned that some people could be dropping coverage or whatever, and I'm going, well, wait, that goes back to the services that are being offered or how the conglomerate providers are doing.
Can you, yeah, it was, you know, thinking, sorry, Kelly, I'm doing this to you, but I wondered if you could, do you have broadband internet service, and then are you satisfied, yes or no? And then, third part, who do you have? If you have broadband, because it might be interesting to know
How many people
where
are
the
in the-
majority of the folks are going. Can we have one question ask 3 questions?
I can find out. Squeeze it in small font.
Well, the one above, you had 3 kind of options,
Yeah.
population growth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Could I make a recommendation though?
Yeah.
We, at our level, cause we've been in seminars, we talk about broadband. I don't know if the average home person in a home even knows what the heck they were talking about.
So I put
I
slash internet, does
I
that
think we
help?
should call it high-speed internet.
Do you have high-speed internet?
Cause I think then we know we're addressing
Yeah.
specifically to what we're talking about.
Wait, what's your question?
Changing this from saying broadband.
She has internet, broadband/internet service.
I just think the word broadband is cliche amongst the people.
So just go
that-
to internet service?
Just saying high-speed internet, how many are
That
you?
works,
are-
yeah.
Do I don't even know if I have high speed, I have internet. So how can I be satisfied if I?
Well, but I mean, the lingo we see on commercials about
How
get
about-
faster internet.
How
get-
about if we just say internet? I think that is a good, would you be alright with just internet?
I'm just throwing out a
And then we can
suggestion.
say,
that's all.
then we can say how satisfied, because that might be one of the reasons.
I just don't want it to be over people's heads where they go broadband, what are they actually
Yeah.
referring
Could
to
you do
by?
internet, put in parentheses broadband?
Or just
Most
internet.
people.
Just
know.
I just
I
think
think
internet
people
or
do.
high-speed internet or whatever, yeah.
Internet.
Okay, so do you have high speed or internet or high speed internet, and are you satisfied with it? And then did you want
Who's
to
your
add
carrier?
Who's your provider?
Yeah, let's see if we can break that one down, 3 parts.
Okay,
Can we list out, cause does that have to be multiple choice?
Yeah, we'll have,
probably. I
yeah, we'll have to.
So we'll have to know the top 3 or 4 that they
Right.
provide.
think there's about
think
6 or so that we put on there. And then our open-ended question, I have 2 options. You don't have to go with either one of them. But one of them could be, what are the top 3 things you value most about living in Windsor? Or we could ask, what would you like Windsor to be known for in the future? So 2 different questions, but interesting answers.
And you saw these on other community?
Yeah, I
Is that
dug
how you
around, yeah, I did. And this came out of my
Yeah,
brain.
well, you're pretty smart,
I'm
but,
pretty smart, but I did do some research in other communities, what they asked for their open-ended question. So one's kind of looking at what are the present time, so again, it was, what are the top 3 things you value most about living in Windsor? Or we could say more future-oriented, what would you like Windsor to be known for in the future?
I like the first one, cause that means we should probably try to maintain those things,
I like it too because of specificity.
I agree.
but I'm open to other ideas. It just seems like if we know what they like now, we can work towards keeping that.
And I think that we need to be, people live here because they already chose a reason to be here.
Right.
Versus, what do you want it to be known for? Well, I already like the way, or
So are we
Say neighborhood parks.
open for contemplating other
Mhm.
questions?
Absolutely.
So what about asking one regarding, their perceived value in the taxes, fees that they pay? Do you believe that you get, or how would you rate the value that you're getting for the fees, taxes that you pay as a resident of Windsor? High value, medium value, low value?
I don't even know how I'd answer that.
We do have that actually
honest.
asked, we said,
Is it?
it's on there, the value of services for taxes paid in Windsor, excellent, good, fair, poor, don't know.
where is
There we
that?
go.
That is under question 12, the first one.
Question 12.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's also questions about the direction of Windsor and citizen involvement, being honest in government.
Well, you may not like it, Paul, but it's already there. So,
You may have to answer.
you may have to
Well,
answer
and
it.
I hear what you're asking, but then I hear what he whispered in my ear, which is what would we be prepared to do based upon the answer to that question?
Well,
if that
I
was
think you
the-
should be
Well,
prepared
that's-
to,
That's part of why we use this.
That's
I understand, but I'm just saying
Right.
going specifically off of, what you're saying.
well, I mean, if you're gonna ask a question here, you better dang well be ready for the repercussions. I mean, that's,
Right.
you know, if people say, hey, you're doing a bunch of stupid things with our tax dollars, and we probably should not do so many stupid things with our tax dollars.
But Dan, Paul, we may wanna, if we think our taxes and fees are fair and correct, maybe we need to do a better job of educating the
That's exactly-
population.
There's
So
that too.
that could be an
That's
answer,
one of the options.
Right.
that could be an option,
Or-
it doesn't mean.
Right.
Or if it's not being, if it's not being communicated well to the town at large, that, you know, that the town board is managing the finances well, then perhaps the town board needs to do a better job of communicating the way the town manages it.
Blame the
That's-
newspaper.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's one of my concerns, is that we talk about, I mean, these people are complaining about growth, and yet they don't have a clue what we're doing to make it better. They don't know about the road situations yet, they don't know about what we're doing, what the schools are doing, you know, planning for it. And I just think we need to do a better job of educating them so that they can answer that.
Well, it's those type of questions that come up at Coffee with the Mayor. Tell me how, if they're not asking, tell me how much money you've allocated to the roads, infrastructure, I mean, they're just going, have we thought about, you know, widening crossroads? Yes, we have. Oh, okay, great, and then they're ready to move, I mean, they're leaving it to us to determine how much should get approved, you know, what I mean, the numbers are right over their head, it's not, cause if we told them, yeah, every year we allocate $15 million to our, oh my gosh, what, yeah, and that number is irrelevant to the average person, so they just wanna know, are we addressing the issue, and that's what I'm saying, what you're saying is correct. It's just, if we take them too far into the numbers, you lose them, and that doesn't mean anything, and they might think it's too much, you know, and that may not even be enough.
I mean, the question is good, but we need to know how the people feel.
Mhm, mhm.
Then we need to be ready to answer it and give them
Well,
some.
that's why I like the trending on this, I mean, if you see something that needs to be addressed, this lets you give, I mean, we had a budget meeting discussion last week, and, you know, this will come late in the game for us, but this will be one of our guiding documents.
Mhm.
When we get the information in August, and you look at this, we will look at it and say, did we hit the target with the budget, or do we need to adjust?
Right.
And come back, and you should be using this as your guide also.
Is this a survey that's made publicly available?
Yes.
Yeah, anybody can go online besides the folks that it's just gonna get mailed to, the 1,500. Does it address, I mean, so the biggest constant, I think, questions and concerns at Coffee with the Mayor lately have been our kids, you know, and issues related to that, and safety, and drugs and all of that. Is there questions that already kind of get to that, so we can understand, is it just, I mean, do the folks coming with the mayor just happen to be those folks, or is there a bigger underlying current with more of our citizens in general, who are also aware they just don't have time to come with coffee, or they don't share it with anybody, but they also have those thoughts and concerns?
We do have some questions about safety.
I saw that.
And so there's a section on that, you know, feeling safe in your neighborhood, those type of questions. There's only a few that touch on, it just says K through 12 education or affordable childcare, not really diving into it. That's something we can consider.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of our jurisdiction, though, that's why
Yeah.
I'm not,
So maybe it'll come out if you say, I mean, our value, or, I don't know,
you know,
or, I don't know, if that could be worded or added, something added to that question, so if those folks had that concern, they would put that there as an open-ended.
I think number 4 is probably the closest.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm wondering, is there something, another couple of words you can add to that would say, instead of, you know, top 3 things you value or are concerned about, or I don't know, is that too broad, or I don't know.
I don't know.
Or like giving a blank where they could just write something in.
I
I don't know,
I'm listening.
Share with us.
Draw a picture.
There's 10 pages of it. I like the idea of asking the top 3 things, because we have a tendency to take things that are working for granted. And I think we need to pay attention to what's working well and maintain that, but I also listen to what you're saying, I like the idea of, this is stating in a positive way, what are the 3 things that you really like about our town? But it'd be nice to hear also, what would you like to see improved?
So I don't know.
Did we just buy one open-ended question?
We did, but we could buy another one.
How much is
How
one
much is
more?
a vowel?
How much is?
How much does it complain?
You won't like the price, but how much is one more open-ended question? It's like 1,500 for one open question.
Let's see, yeah, it's 1,800 for one open-ended question.
Yep, that's a deal, you guys.
We are under
Above
budget, we
business.
budgeted 18,000 and it came in around 17,000.
That would probably put
We'd
us over
still,
then.
we'd still be over budget, but
If it's
just
something you
giving you
wanna
an
ask,
idea
we
where
can
we're
ask
at.
you. I mean, I don't.
I feel like there's enough questions in here that you can get
A sense of.
a sense of where.
Please rate on
Yeah.
how much you
Yeah.
think the survey cost.
If they
So
answer.
top 3 things are just where they, it's a write-in.
Yes,
If
it's
we
right.
told you how much the
I guess
survey
if
cost,
somebody's that
what would you think?
consumed with something, they could write in anything they want.
Do you feel that the survey is a good
If
value
they-
of your money?
I guess, you know.
I like that question, just add that one there.
Hey, you're probably
There's a
right.
can right now.
I will buy a vowel.
There's enough areas there where they could have a negative response that we would
Yeah.
have an idea from that. Good point, I think.
Okay.
So top 3 things is what everybody agrees
Yeah,
with?
I like it.
Alright,
Sure, roll with it.
So it goes out when?
it'll be mailed to residents May 27,
I hope I get one.
around that date.
Me too.
And you can go online if you don't.
I think they purposely avoid it.
Alright.
You can go online if you don't.
Is there any way, in all seriousness though, with our digital age, would there have been a reason why we couldn't have done this whole thing digitally?
Yeah.
It's
because
statistically
this
valid
one-
when you
this-
mail it out.
This is what, this, not necessarily what you pay the money for, it's the analysis of who they send it to and how they get it to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they force it, and then they'll do the analysis saying, you have a statistically valid survey. And if they don't, they'll come back and redo it. and
Yeah, they'll
start
send
fresh
out more mailing, and they also ask them to break it down by district, so each one of you can see within your own district
Oh, cool.
comparatively to the town as well.
So does it make it invalid if it's District 1 heavy? Would that compromise the validity of it? Cause if I get a bunch of people in District 1
Do
who
the
want mine.
website, they'll, if you get 1,000 people in District 1, for instance, to participate on the website, they might say, I don't know, we could ask, but I bet they pull that out and say, we're gonna pull this one out and let you know what they responded, but it doesn't go into statistical value.
Because they'll know they're online, so they can
Right.
take them out.
Yeah, and they've been working with our GIS department to have it all mapped out, and then once they start to get results back, do we have people from enough age chunks and diversity and all of it?
And if it's abnormally large, they might think that there was some kind of artificial thing that caused the big response.
That's why online polls are highly unreliable.
Yeah, anybody can take them. So when is it going out? I missed that.
End of May 27th, around that date.
Thank you.
And we'll do a push both ways, one saying, we're gonna send these out, look for them,
Yeah.
and also if you wanna do it, here's how.
Mhm.
At least they went out while Christian's still in office. So.
Yeah.
What are you gonna blame him?
Yeah.
They'll all be received and can start coming back.
Maybe we should have like a district winner board for greatest satisfaction.
Great.
Pick your
Thank
favorite
you.
board
Thanks,
member.
Kelly, for working on
Thanks.
that.
Pick your
And our last item
How do you
then
rate
is
the following
future
board?
town board meetings.
So next week, we'll start at 6 with an executive session, so we'll move into the meeting. I don't think we'll do the whole thing, we might just open up a meeting and we'll go adjourn, or then we'll recess, and come back and we'll probably do the regular meeting as we normally do.
Okay.
Something like that. Then, I thought it'd be good, while the daylight's out and good weather, and let's hope it's good weather, May 1st, we would take a tour. We may need to carpool a little bit, but, we'll probably meet here. 5:30 seems to be okay, we may need to do a little bit earlier than that, but we'll walk over there, go through, and then get in a couple vehicles and head out there, and be done before. the
Are they
dark-
far enough
darkness.
along on the mill to make that, to have enough to look at over there?
Oh, yeah.
I just did not.
Yep.
And I'll be out for both of those.
I
Oh,
I
yeah.
may or may
Still go
not be
quicker.
back for the first one. All depends on,
And you're
I
up to
come home, I'll be
24.
home during
I'm
the
on the
week, during the
24th,
week,
correct.
then I'll be leaving again.
Then we move into our informal on May 8th. The 15th, we have a joint board meeting with the school, library, and fire districts, which we are hosting at the Art and Heritage Center. And then we do have a couple items we thought we wanted to get in front of you. One is the budgeting reserve policies. We want to get that worked through a little bit with you and probably aim towards a early summer if we need to modify things so we know what we're doing in the budget or not, and we all have a clear understanding what we want to do with policies. And then District 2 vacancy, I think by then you'll have, I think it'll be closed by then. And you'll have some discussion who you want to interview, I think, that night, if you need to have that discussion. So it'll be a follow-up where we are. Which does not include, and I still don't know where you're doing the interviews. You all, is that June 5th? June 5th.
That's what we said.
yeah.
And that's what you said, but we've scheduled stuff, haven't we?
It was on one of the other ones.
Because we did put down June 5th, didn't we?
We did.
Alright, I'm circling
We
that
got a
now.
work session there.
Well, but
We might
I
be
think
able
our
to fit
town
it in.
clerk may have forgot.
Well,
so-
we might be able to fit that in,
We
depending,
might,
I mean,
yeah,
if there's only two
we'll leave it
interviews
in there.
or three.
Cause this is
you know,
really
kind
kinda something you wanna talk about, so if we got a slew of interviews, I'd say wait on this. We can do
Yeah.
it anytime. Metropolitan District discussions, May 22nd, I think that deserves an hour.
I'm out that. I think I can let you guys know, but.
Are you alright?
Oh, yeah, I'm alright.
So we'll leave, we'll
Maybe I'll
kind
watch
of,
online.
May 29th, you don't wanna meet Memorial Day, I'm assuming. Which also, does anybody have a feeling right now how you feel about July 3rd? Which is the Monday night before 4th of July. Do you wanna meet, or do you
Yes,
just?
meet.
And with that, I'm gonna cancel that work session. I mean, I don't.
It's a work session?
It's a work session.
Yeah.
Anybody see any?
I'd say yes.
I think so.
We'll call it the Christian Morgan honorary.
Yeah, we'll invite you in, not be there.
I want a meeting.
Said it was subpoena. You have to come to the town board.
I say meet.
Somewhere in the middle of June, probably not on a Monday night, we're gonna talk about it tomorrow and see if we can start getting schedules, is that joint meeting I wanna schedule with Fort Collinsville Water District, Severance and Eaton and Windsor, to talk about regional water treatment plant and NISP. Probably not on Monday night, considering all the various groups, in fact, it might be a day meeting. I will do my best to work around all the different things, but, you know, that's 3 other group of boards that I probably can't control too much, so we'll see what everybody lands on that one, but that could be a day meeting in the middle of June.
I can tell you, I have booked my time at CML, and I will be out the night of June 19th, that work session, because that's the night before.
I don't think there's much happening Tuesday, is there? Is there much
You
happening?
going up Monday night?
Yeah, I'm saying I'm extending before and after CML and rec.
Okay, it's kind of a big night.
Well, the last time you brought up road impact fees, I don't think they were too fun, like you said they were.
Would you just miss the fun one?
No, I'll tell you what, I'll probably, in all seriousness, I'll probably tune in. So I mean, I'll
Well,
at
you
least
know
be.
what, if we need to, what we can do is, we can move it up to June, June 12th.
What's that?
Awful meeting.
It's gonna be going to Breckenridge Brewery.
Let me keep that in mind, but you're not here June 19th, is what you're saying, more importantly.
Not in this room. I have no problem with the conference center.
You don't get the
watching
proxy
it.
vote.
I mean, I don't wanna miss it. I'm just not gonna go up separately, I get
Right, gotcha. I understand.
He's taking the whole crew.
the
Yep.
whole crew.
I
Are you
understand.
taking your kids?
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
Monday to Saturday,
That's
so
neat.
we're gonna.
It might wait, I know we booked it, we may have talked to the consultant, I'll find out. Okay, there's a lot here. Plus stormwater fee, stormwater master plan is getting in here, they've kinda looked at June 26th, but I don't know if I wanna book that right after CML, cause there's a lot of potential reading there. I'm not certain anybody's gonna be in the mood. So I'm just kinda eyeballing that little ditty too, and on top of what you just left with Eric today, and then you look at your list. So entertainment districts, something we'd like to get in front of you sooner than later. We do wanna do a little bit on electric car charging station, we might get that
What
one
do you
in.
mean by entertainment
Yeah.
districts?
So,
Yeah.
statutes were changed about 2 years ago to allow entertainment districts to be formed in communities. So when, for instance, Greeley on their Friday night events, when they do
Oh.
Red Cup, that's what they do in their entertainment district, is
So they can walk around with a beer.
and he's probably gonna wanna do it over here, he's gonna probably wanna go from one permit to another permit, to be able to go into their common or shared, area for the little concert venue here. So he might wanna do an over entertainment venue, but there's possibility that you may wanna do it in other places for other events too. So that's one we feel like we need to tell you about, see if you're interested, then we go through, and that's gonna take a little time to work through. But it's something about 2 years old, statutory. That's,
The beer garden doesn't fall underneath something like that, does it? Okay.
we are ready to buy some electric cars, which is pretty cool. But we do want to put a couple more charging stations in. Kelly's wrapping that up, so in a couple weeks, we'll probably get in front of you, tell you about that. We have capacity in the fleet fund to be able to do both of those. But we wanna talk about how that's gonna work before we go out and do those kind of neat. So, and the water issues discussion, I think, might be that June topic I talked about. So, anyway, that's what we got.
Kelly?
You got a busy summer
Oh,
coming. Yep.
Are you done?
Mhm.
Are we prepared for the tree board, celebration with the kids? The poster winners, and do we have that planned and ready to go?
I assume so. That's usually during a board meeting.
Well, I think, well, it's during a board meeting and before the board meeting, and, I was asked to make sure that we were ready for it, cause they're gonna be, she assigned all of them.
What
So
day is
they're gonna be, there'll be
Well,
more
Yeah.
of them.
Is it, is
I
it?
have no idea what day it is. Don't know anything about it.
Well, it should be the, last meeting in April.
The 24th?
That would be next Monday.
That'll be yours.
And so, and they're ready because we'll have the program tomorrow at Rangeview and Friday at
Okay.
Skyview. So we wanna do that as soon as possible afterwards. All they do for the new people, the winners come and honorable mentions and down.
We're not gonna have anything contentious on next Monday night's thing, we're gonna have 100 people plus all the kids and everybody.
No, but let me, I have not heard it. I'm gonna see the agenda tomorrow. So I can't answer you. If it's either Monday or soon coming, so.
Well, and I think we've talked about it, and the tree board has talked about it, and I hope that we have, but I just wanted to check and make sure that we're ready. Hate to have all those kids.
Well, I am not, because I
parents
don't know
come.
anything about it, so I will be ready when it comes.
For the new people, they leave
We did
after
it last
the.
year.
We were there.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do
they
have
were.
one, yeah.
Well, you were there, all right.
That was their first, one of their
That's our
first
first
meetings.
meeting.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure.
I was there too.
Eric Lucas is watching right now, real time. So it's first I've heard that this is scheduled for next week, so maybe not.
Oh,
Maybe not, what?
Well,
But
I think
we'll find
the
out.
tree board is ready for it.
I don't know but I don't know what, Ken usually is in charge. He puts that all together, so we'll work with
Okay,
it.
well, I just wanted to ask,
Yep.
so that we have it on.
We'll get it, I'm sure.
Somebody's watching us.
Hey, Eric.
he just can't get enough of
Yeah,
us.
See what we would change on
You're
it.
not normal, Eric.
Yeah,
That's
but we'll be ready when it gets scheduled.
sad.
Yes.
That's all I got.
He goes home and tunes in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sad,
Thank you.
Do we have a ball? That's the next park and play.
We did one time.
Really?